Just as my white moonlight and I were passionately tangled in bed, my phone rang with an unknown number. I reluctantly answered, my voice hoarse with desire. Who is it? What could be so important this late at night? It was my ex-wife. We had been married for 7 years, and she knew me inside and out. Hearing my raw voice and heavy breathing, she knew exactly what I was doing. She'd heard it countless times before. A sharp scream erupted from the other end. "Sincere Smith, what are you doing? Who are you with? I was actually thinking of giving you a chance, but now..." Recognizing her voice, I hung up without a second thought, muttering at the dead phone, "Fucking psycho." I turned back to my white moonlight. "My little baby, we're not done yet. Let's continue." The woman in my arms, Vivian Reed, was the one I truly cherished, the one I placed on a pedestal. Her skin was like snow, her eyes captivating, and she radiated a gentle, understanding aura that I found intoxicating. She was nothing like my ex-wife, Willow Blackwood, who was always a cold, calculating ice queen. Vivian gasped softly, her delicate hand resting on my chest. "Sincere, my dear. Was that Willow? You're already divorced. Why is she still like this?" I kissed her forehead, my tone a mixture of reassurance and disdain. "Don't mind her. She's just a crazy woman. We've only been divorced a month, and she's already regretting it, wanting me back. In her dreams, what does she take me for? Some piece of trash she can summon and dismiss at will?" Vivian's eyes sparkled with adoration. "I knew it. You're the best, Sincere. You deserve better." "Of course," I smirked. "And now, don't I have better?" My 7-year marriage to Willow had been a long, suffocating form of torture. She looked down on me. From the very marrow of her bones, she looked down on me. When I decided to quit my cushy corporate job to start my own business, she was the first to object. "Sincere, are you insane? With your half-baked skills, what kind of business can you start? Isn't a stable life good enough?" Later, when my company was just getting off the ground and I needed capital, I asked her to sell a small apartment we'd bought after getting married. She threw the sales agreement in my face. "Impossible, that's our joint property. Don't even think about it, Sincere. Let me tell you, money is a lot more reliable than you are, but what I couldn't stand the most was her own white moonlight that she constantly brought up her ever-so-perfect older brother, Ethan Blackwood. When my brother started his business, he got angel funding in 3 months. And you? My brother said this project of yours has no future, but you just wouldn't listen. Sincere, can't you learn from my brother, be a little more mature, more stable? Ethan, for 7 years I lived in Ethan's shadow, like a failure who could never win her approval. But Vivian was different. She was a younger student from my university. We reconnected by chance after graduation, and she became an administrator at my company. She always looked at me with those gentle, worshipful eyes. When I was torn to shreds by Willow's criticisms, she would bring me a hot coffee and whisper, "CEO Smith, I think you're incredible." She would read my project proposals carefully. Even if she didn't understand them, she'd say, "I trust your judgment." When I got drunk, she would quietly take me home, watch Willow slam the door in my face, and then send me a text, "Get some rest, Mr. Smith. Don't get angry with people who don't understand you." She was the light that shone into my gray existence, my white moonlight. For her, I finally made up my mind to divorce that cold woman, Willow. I left with nothing. The house, the cars, the savings, I didn't want any of it. All I wanted was my freedom and a new life with my Vivian. I thought getting rid of Willow was the beginning of happiness. I never expected she'd cling to me like a leech I couldn't shake off. The next morning, Willow cornered Vivian and me at the entrance of my company building, acting like a shrew. Her face was sallow, her eyes sunken, and she wore a worn, pilled coat that stood in stark contrast to the elegant, sophisticated Vivian beside me. "Sincere Smith, you bastard, you really are with this vixen," she shrieked, lunging to grab Vivian's hair. I pulled Vivian behind me and shoved Willow away in disgust. "Willow, have you lost your mind? We're divorced. Who I'm with is none of your damn business." The push sent Willow stumbling back, nearly falling. She steadied herself, the hatred in her eyes so intense it could have devoured me. "Divorced? In your dreams, let me tell you, we are getting back together. Either that, or you give me $3 million, otherwise I'll come to your company every single day and ruin your reputation. $3 million. I almost laughed out loud in anger. This woman, who valued money more than life itself during our 7-year marriage, was now trying to blackmail me at the very end. "Willow, are you that desperate for money?" I sneered. "I left with nothing. Where would I get $3 million for you? Do you still think I'm that wimp you used to walk all over?" From behind me, Vivian said timidly, "Willow, please don't be like this. Sincere works so hard to build his business." "You shut up, Vixen," Willow glared at Vivian. "It's all your fault. You destroyed my family." Seeing her unhinged state, the last shred of affection I had for her evaporated. "Security!" I yelled into the lobby. "Get this troublemaker out of here!" Several guards quickly surrounded her. Willow struggled, crying and screaming like a mad woman abandoned by the world. "Sincere Smith, you will die a miserable death. You'll regret this. You will definitely regret this." Her curses echoed from a distance. I found them both grating and laughable. Regret? The best decision I ever made in my life was divorcing her. Vivian was pale with fright. I held her close, my heart aching for her. "Don't be scared, baby. I'm here." Vivian leaned against my chest, her eyes red. "Sincere, did I cause trouble for you?" "Willow," she seemed so agitated, "it has nothing to do with you. She's the one with the problem." I comforted her. "She just can't stand to see me happy and wants to extort some money. We're already divorced." "Does she really think she still has any hold over me?" Back in my office, Vivian made me a cup of tea and analyzed the situation in her soft voice. "Sincere, I think Willow might just feel bitter. You were together for 7 years after all. Now your career is taking off, and she's left with nothing. Women can be very jealous sometimes. Why don't we give her a little money? Think of it as a severance payment. See, this is Vivian, always so kind, always thinking of me." She was a world apart from Willow, that woman who only knew how to take. Moved, I held her hand. "My little fool, you're too kind. Why should I give her any money?" Leaving with nothing was the greatest act of mercy I could offer. She's a thankless snake. Despite my words, Willow's harassment was causing me real trouble. She was true to her word, showing up at my company every day. Sometimes she'd throw a tantrum on the ground, other times she'd stage a silent protest, holding a sign that read, "Sincere Smith abandons wife for mistress." My colleagues started whispering behind my back. Some important partners heard the rumors and began to question my character. A major client we were about to close a deal with suddenly said they needed to reconsider. I was about to explode with frustration. I called Willow. On the phone, she was sobbing uncontrollably. "Sincere, either we get back together or you give me the money. You choose. If I can't be happy, I'll make sure you won't be either." "What the hell do you want, 3 million? Why don't you just rob a bank?" "I want 3 million, not a penny less." Her voice was as stubborn as a rock. I gritted my teeth in hatred. Was this greedy, insatiable woman trying to destroy me? Seeing my troubled expression, Vivian carefully suggested, "Sincere, maybe we should call the police?" I shook my head. "You don't air your dirty laundry in public. Calling the police would only make things bigger and cause more damage to my company's reputation. Then, what if we have someone look into her?" A subtle, sharp glint flashed in Vivian's eye. "See if she has gambling debts, or if she's been scammed by someone. Why else would she suddenly need so much money? If we can find some leverage on her, she might stop harassing you." I paused. That wasn't a bad idea. Know your enemy. Willow had always been pragmatic. There had to be a reason for this sudden, desperate demand for money. If I could find her weakness, I could shut her up for good. I hired a well-known private investigator and told him to follow Willow. I needed to know what she was doing, who she was meeting, and why she needed that money. My request was simple: get me something that would ruin her. I expected the investigator to find photos of her at high-end clubs or with some other man. After all, she loved money and status so much. But 3 days later, the PI's report left me utterly stunned. "Mr. Smith, your ex-wife. She hasn't gone anywhere special these past few days. Just 2 places. Which 2? I asked impatiently. "One is your old home and your company. The other is the city cancer hospital." "The cancer hospital?" My heart skipped a beat. What was she doing at the hospital? Is she sick? A strange, indefinable emotion began to stir within me. "Doesn't look like it." The investigator's tone was odd. "She always goes to the oncology department." I asked around. "She's not there as a patient. She's there to take care of someone." "Take care of who?" "It seems to be her brother, Ethan Blackwood." "Ethan?" The name was like a needle piercing my heart. My brother-in-law, the golden boy Willow practically worshipped. How could he be in the oncology department of a cancer hospital? The investigator sent a few photos. In the pictures, Willow was dressed plainly, pushing a wheelchair. The person in the wheelchair had a shaved head and was so gaunt and pale he was almost unrecognizable. If not for the familiar bone structure, I would never have known it was the man I used to be so insanely jealous of, Ethan. He was sick, and it was serious. After hanging up, I sat in my office chair, unable to calm myself for a long time. My mind was a chaotic mess. Willow was desperately demanding $3 million, not for herself, but to pay for Ethan's treatment. The moment the thought appeared, I brutally stamped it out. Impossible. Who was Ethan? Heaven's favored son. He had his own successful company. How could he possibly need Willow to raise money for his medical bills? This must be a pity play. They cooked up together a scheme to trick me out of my money. Yes, that had to be it. That woman would do anything for money. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. The feeling of being deceived made me lose all reason. Vivian came in and saw my dark expression. Sincere, what's wrong? Did the investigation turn something up? I told her what the PI had found and my suspicions. Vivian snorted, a look of, I knew it, on her face. I told you something was fishy. Ethan is so rich himself, why would he need his sister to publicly beg for money? It's obvious they're in it together to scam you. She paused, then gently took my hand, her eyes filled with sympathy. Sincere, you're just too soft-hearted. You've done more than enough for her, yet she keeps trying to manipulate you. You can't show any more mercy to people like that. Vivian's words completely dispelled the last ridiculous doubt in my mind. I let out a cold laugh, my eyes glinting with ice. You're right. If she wants to play dirty, she can't blame me for being ruthless. She loves to act, doesn't she? Well, I'm going to see for myself just how she plans to play out this little drama. I would go to the hospital and expose her lies to her face. I would make her and her perfect brother utterly humiliated in front of me the next day without telling anyone. I drove to the city cancer hospital alone. Following the investigator's information, I went straight to the oncology floor. Before I even reached the ward area, I saw Willow in a corner at the end of the hallway. She was crouched on the floor, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs that escaped through her fingers, filled with despair and helplessness. A doctor in a white coat stood before her, his expression grim as he spoke. I quietly approached, hiding behind a large potted plant, and listened to their conversation. Ms. Blackwood, your brother's condition is not optimistic. The leukemia has relapsed, and the cancer cells are spreading rapidly. The previous chemotherapy regimen is no longer effective. The only hope now is CAR T-cell therapy, followed by a bone marrow transplant as soon as possible. CAR T, how much will that cost? Willow's voice was trembling uncontrollably. This therapy is extremely expensive. One course of treatment will cost at least $120,000, and that's just the treatment fee, the subsequent transplant, anti-rejection drugs. It's all a huge expense. The family needs to have at least $3 million prepared. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to proceed. 3 million, the number exploded in my head like a bomb. So, the 3 million she wanted, it was really to save a life. I froze, my heart squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. I saw Willow slowly stand up. She wiped her tears away with the back of her hand and bowed deeply to the doctor, her voice hoarse but firm. Doctor, thank you. The money, I'll figure something out. I will get it. I'm begging you, please don't give up on my brother. The doctor sighed and patted her shoulder. We won't. You need to take care of yourself, too. After the doctor left, Willow stood there for a long time. She leaned against the cold wall like a statue drained of its soul. After a moment, she took out her phone and dialed a number with trembling fingers. The call connected. She began to plead humbly. Hello, Mr. Peterson? This is Willow Blackwood. Yes, about that dinner party you mentioned last time. I'll go. Any price is fine as long as you can give me a portion of the deposit in advance. My mind went blank. I knew who Mr. Peterson was, a notoriously sleazy investor in his 50s, bald with a beer belly, who loved to grope young women under the guise of business talks. Willow was going to drink with a man like that for money? I couldn't hold back any longer. I burst out from behind the plant, snatched the phone from her hand, and roared into it. Go to hell, she's not coming then. I slammed the phone off. Willow was startled by my sudden appearance. When she saw it was me, shock gave way to deep humiliation and rage. Sincere. What are you doing here? Are you following me? She screamed, trying to grab her phone back. Talk to me. I gripped the phone tightly, my eyes bloodshot as I stared at her. What the hell happened to Ethan? Where's his money, his company? At the mention of Ethan, Willow's tears broke free again. As if all her strength had been drained, she slid down the wall to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. "It's gone. Everything is gone," she choked out. "He had a failed investment 2 years ago. The company went bankrupt and he was drowning in debt. He hid it from me because he didn't want me to worry. He sold his house to pay off the debts and was living in a tiny, rundown room. If a neighbor hadn't found him when he collapsed and sent him to the hospital, I might still not know. He's been sick for over a year. To save money, his chemotherapy has been on and off. Now it's relapsed. The doctor said if we don't treat it now, he's going to die. Sincere, I'm really out of options." She looked up, her once bright, proud eyes now filled with nothing but humble pleading. "I'm begging you, for the sake of our 7 years of marriage, can you please lend me the money? I'll pay you back. I'll sign an IOU. I'll work like a slave to pay you back." My heart felt like it was being pierced by 1,000 needles. So this was the truth. The golden boy I had always envied and hated had fallen from grace, buried in debt and battling a fatal illness. And the gold-digging ex-wife I had scorned and despised was carrying the weight of a fallen sky on her own fragile shoulders. I remembered her causing a scene at my company, wearing that pilled old coat, her face sallow. It wasn't because she was slovenly, it was because she was exhausted and couldn't bear to spend a single dollar on herself. I remembered her stubborn demand for $3 million. It wasn't greed, it was the desperate roar of someone with no way out. I remembered our divorce, when I swaggered away with nothing, thinking I was being magnanimous. But the house and car I gave her were probably sold long ago to fill the bottomless pit of Ethan's medical bills. For 7 years of marriage, I thought I was living in her shadow, under her contempt. But when had I ever tried to truly understand her situation? I only saw her coldness, not the pressure she bore alone in the dead of night. I only heard her love of money, not the way she haggled over every penny with vendors at the market to save money. I only felt her admiration for Ethan, never realizing that behind it was the bond of a family that had only each other, the only person she was trying to protect with all her might. And what was I doing when she needed me most? I was in bed with another woman. I was mocking her insanity. I was suspecting her with the most venomous thoughts, even hiring someone to investigate her, hoping to find something to destroy her with. I was a complete and utter bastard. A tidal wave of regret and guilt washed over me, drowning me. I knelt, reaching out to help her up, my voice painfully hoarse. "Willow, don't touch me." She recoiled like a startled porcupine, violently shaking off my hand. She scrambled to her feet, looking at me with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of hatred and disappointment. "Are you satisfied now, Sincere? Does seeing my family in this miserable state make you feel vindicated? Do you feel like you've finally beaten my brother?" A bitter smile twisted her lips, uglier than tears. "Just go. I don't need your sympathy, and I certainly don't need your pity. The Blackwood family's business is none of an outsider's concern." Outsider. The word was the sharpest of knives, stabbing precisely into the softest part of my heart. Yes, we were divorced. In her darkest hour, I had pushed her away with my own hands. What right did I have to stand here now? I watched her turn away resolutely, walking step by step toward the hospital room. Her slender back looked so fragile, as if it could be blown over by a gust of wind in the hallway. I had never felt so powerless. I didn't follow her. I just stood there, like a fool, for a very long time. Then I turned and went to the attending physician's office. I asked the doctor for all the details about Ethan's condition, the CAR-T therapy, and the bone marrow transplant process and risks. Finally, I took out my bank card. "Doctor, charge all of Ethan Blackwood's medical expenses to this card. Use the best medicine, find the best specialists. Money is not an issue." The doctor looked at me surprised. "And you are?" "I'm his brother-in-law." The words tasted bitter on my tongue. Ex-brother-in-law, I added with difficulty. It was dark by the time I left the hospital. I drove aimlessly through the city's bustling traffic, my mind filled with the image of Willow's tear-streaked, stubborn face. I went back to the home Willow and I once shared. After the divorce, the house went to her. I hadn't been back once. I tried the old passcode. The door opened. She hadn't changed the lock. The house was dark, the air filled with the faint smell of dust. It clearly hadn't been lived in for a while. I turned on the lights, and a familiar scene met my eyes. On the sofa was the blanket I always used to use. On the coffee table was the tea I hadn't finished. On the balcony, the few succulents I had kept were well cared for, not withered at all. Everything here still bore the traces of my life. I went into the bedroom and opened the closet. My half was still empty. Her half was filled with old clothes from inexpensive brands. On the dresser was a photo frame. It was our wedding photo from 7 years ago. In the picture, she was smiling radiantly, nestled against me, her eyes full of hope for the future. And me? I had lost the girl whose eyes were once filled with only me. In the dresser drawer, I found a locked old iron box. I recognized it. She had used it in college, saying it held her most important things. On a strange impulse, I found the key and opened it. There was no jewelry or property deed inside, only a thick stack of receipts and an old diary. The receipts were all for Ethan's medical expenses over the past few years, checkups, treatments, medications. Each one documented a staggering sum. The earliest one was dated from the 5th year of our marriage. That meant Ethan had been sick for over 2 years, and I, the man who shared a bed with his sister, had known nothing. With trembling hands, I opened the diary. On the first page, a line of elegant handwriting. May my Sincere always be carefree, and may his career soar. Tears instantly flooded my eyes. I flipped through it, page by page. September 15th, 2020. Sunny. Sincere said he wants to start a business. I'm so scared. My brother is a cautionary tale. I'm afraid he'll fail just as miserably. I don't want him to work so hard. But when I see the light in his eyes, I can't bear to shatter his dream. What do I do? I'm such a useless wife. March 2nd, 2021. Cloudy. Sincere's company needs money. He wants to sell my apartment. I refused. How could I sell it? It's the only source of money for my brother's treatment, but I can't tell Sincere the truth. He can't know about Ethan's illness. He's already under so much pressure. Sincere, I'm sorry. It's not that I don't love you, I just have no choice. You must think I'm a very selfish woman. November 30th, 2021. Rain. Fought with Sincere again today. He hates that I always compare him to my brother. That's not what I mean. I'm just so scared. My brother failed because he was too aggressive. I'm afraid Sincere will go down the same path. But the words came out as accusations. I'm so stupid. May 10th, 2022. Cloudy. I saw Sincere with his assistant Vivian today. They looked so happy. The way Vivian looks at Sincere, her eyes sparkling with admiration, it's just like how I used to look at him. Maybe I'm really not a good wife. All I give him is pressure and arguments. Vivian can give him understanding and gentleness. Does my Sincere not love me anymore? August 1st, 2023. Sunny. We're divorced. Sincere left with nothing. He said all he wanted was freedom. That's for the best. This way he won't be dragged down by me anymore. The money from selling the house and car should last for a while. Sincere, I wish you happiness. I hope that girl Vivian can love you well for me. September 5th, 2023. Rain. My brother's illness has relapsed. CAR-T, $3 million. It feels like a mountain crushing me. I have no other choice. I have to go to Sincere. I know I'm being shameless, despicable, but besides him, I don't know who else to turn to. I'm sorry, Sincere. Forgive my madness. I just want my brother to live. The diary ended there. My tears had already soaked the pages, blurring the ink, so she did love me. She just shouldered all the hardship by herself. Her coldness was a facade. Her greed was a facade. All her looking down on me was born from fear that I would repeat her brother's mistakes. She was the one who loved me down to the dust, and I had personally pushed her into the abyss. Just then my phone rang. It was Vivian. Her cloying voice came through the receiver. Sincere, where are you? I couldn't find you all day. I miss you so much. Hearing that voice, which I once found so comforting, now only made me feel sick. I even began to wonder, did Willow and I end up here just because of Ethan's illness? Or did Vivian play some kind of sinister role in all of this? I thought of all the times Vivian had understandingly belittled Willow in front of me, all the times she had gently fueled my resentment toward my wife. Was she really as innocent and pure as she appeared? A huge, terrible idea began to form in my mind. I spoke into the phone, my voice as cold as ice. Vivian, I need to ask you something, and you have to answer me honestly. What is it, Sincere? You're scaring me. Do you know a man named Julian Vance? I asked, word by word. The other end of the line went dead silent. After a full 10 seconds, Vivian finally answered, her voice trembling with panic. "No, I don't know him. Who's that? Why are you suddenly asking about him?" She was lying. I could hear the guilt in her voice. My heart sank completely. Julian Vance. That name was another taboo in my marriage with Willow, or rather, what I had unilaterally decided was her other white moonlight. Julian was Willow's senior in college and her first love. Like me, he was a man who had dived headfirst into the tech startup wave, except he started earlier and was more successful. In the first 2 years of our marriage, his company was already thriving, and he was widely recognized as a young talent in the industry. More than once, when Willow was watching financial news and saw Julian, I had caught a complex, fleeting glint in her eyes. I had interpreted that glint as regret and what if. I was consumed with jealousy. I always felt that in Willow's heart, I could never compare to her perfect brother, nor could I compare to her successful first love. 3 years ago, Julian died in a car accident. I remember it clearly. That day, Willow locked herself in her room and cried all night. I asked her why she was crying. She just said a friend had passed away and she was sad. I didn't believe a word of it. A friend? More like an old flame. From that day on, the name Julian Vance became a thorn in my side. I was convinced he was the white moonlight she hid in her heart. All her dissatisfaction with me stemmed from comparing me to that dead, perfect first love. And why did I suddenly ask Vivian if she knew Julian? Because, just moments ago, as I was looking through Willow's diary, a small photograph had slipped out from between the pages. It was a group photo. The background was the university gate. There were many people in the photo, but I recognized 3 of them at a glance. A young, vibrant Willow, a dashing, confident Julian Vance, and standing next to Julian, smiling shyly and adoringly, was Vivian. They had known each other all along, and Vivian, from the first day we reconnected, had never once mentioned that she knew Willow or Julian. She had played the part of a simple junior from my university who knew nothing about my past. If there wasn't something deeply wrong with this picture, I would eat my own head. I hung up on Vivian and immediately called my private investigator. "I need you to investigate 2 people for me, Vivian Reed and Julian Vance. I want everything on them, especially their relationship. The faster the better. Money is no object. Waiting for the results was an unprecedented form of torture." My mind played back a movie, scene by scene, of every moment since I had met Vivian. She said she admired me. She said she believed in me. She said Willow didn't understand me. She appeared at my lowest point, using precisely targeted gentleness to break down my defenses, making me worship her as my white moonlight, willing to abandon my wife for her. Was all of this really just a coincidence? 2 days later, the investigator called. "Mr. Smith, I found what you were looking for, and this whole thing is a lot deeper than you think." The investigator sent a detailed report. I opened the email and read it, word by word. With every line I read, my heart grew colder. By the end, my blood had turned to ice. The report stated it clearly. Vivian was indeed Julian and Willow's junior in college, but she wasn't just a junior. During college, she had a massive, unrequited crush on Julian. But Julian only ever had eyes for Willow. After graduation, when Julian started his company, Vivian fought tooth and nail to get a job there, becoming his assistant. She stayed by his side as his confidant, even after his accidental death. But what truly sent me into a frozen abyss was the second half of the report. The core technology Julian had built his company on was an intelligent risk control system called Aegis. The system was far ahead of its time, and was the lifeblood of his company. After Julian's death, his shares were diluted by his partners. The company eventually went bankrupt, and the source code for the Aegis system vanished. And my company, my current flagship product, was an intelligent risk control system. Although I believed I had developed it independently, several of the core algorithm modules were, in fact, purchased for a small sum from a tech forum in the early days of my startup. At the time, I thought I had struck gold, assuming it was some unfinished work leaked by a programming guru. Thinking back now, the investigator's report included a technical comparison analysis. My product's core algorithms had a 90% similarity to Julian's Aegis system, and back then, the only person besides Julian who knew all the technical details of the Aegis system was his most trusted assistant, Vivian, All the pieces snapped together in that instant. I had been played for a fool, a puppet on a string. The truth was far uglier and more cruel than I could have imagined. Vivian had approached me not out of love or admiration. From the very beginning, she was a calculating avenger and a predator. Julian was dead. She couldn't have him, so she decided she would have his legacy. She stole his core technology but lacked the ability to commercialize it herself. So, she chose me, because my field of expertise was closest to Julian's. And because I was the husband of the only woman Julian had ever cared about, Willow. She lay in wait, meticulously planning every step. On one hand, she pretended to accidentally leak the core code to me, pieces that seemed unfinished, luring me in to help her carry forward Julian's technological achievement. On the other hand, she constantly fanned the flames, sowing discord between Willow and me, amplifying my jealousy and dissatisfaction, until she successfully destroyed my marriage. 2 birds with 1 stone. She used me to realize Julian's business ambitions, fulfilling her twisted sense of inheritance. And she got her revenge on Willow, stealing her husband and leaving her with nothing. How vicious, how utterly evil. I thought Vivian was my white moonlight, my guiding light. I never knew she was the devil in an angel's mask, hidden in plain sight. I thought Julian was Willow's white moonlight, the third person in my marriage. What a joke, utterly laughable. The real obstacle in my marriage was never a dead first love or a sick brother. It was a scam, an elaborate conspiracy orchestrated by Vivian from start to finish, spanning years. So what if she has a white moonlight? I have one too. I had once said that to Willow, gloating. Now, those words slapped me across the face, louder than any sound. My white moonlight was a venomous, backstabbing liar. And for this liar, I had thrown away the only woman who had ever truly loved me, who had silently given everything for me. I was filled with hate. I hated Vivian for her wickedness, but I hated myself even more for my stupidity. I gripped my phone, my knuckles white from the force, veins bulging on the back of my hand. A storm of rage and regret raged inside my chest, threatening to burn me to ashes. Vivian, I called her, my voice devoid of any warmth. Come to my place, the one I used to live in with Willow. Now, immediately. Sincere? Vivian's voice was tinged with confusion and unease. What's wrong? Your voice sounds terrifying. Isn't our new place nice? Why go back to that jinxed apartment? Cut the crap, I interrupted her harshly. I'm giving you half an hour. You'd better not keep me waiting. After hanging up, I sat on the sofa in the dim living room, silently waiting for my prey to walk into the trap. I placed Willow's diary and the iron box full of medical bills on the coffee table, in the most conspicuous spot. Next to them, I laid out the printed report about her and Julian. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Vivian stood there in a designer dress with flawless makeup, carrying the latest Hermès bag, a radiant smile on her face. Sincere, what's all this mystery about? Her words died in her throat as she saw the items on the coffee table behind me. Her smile froze instantly. The printed report, and especially the photo of her with Julian and Willow, made her pupils contract violently. The color drained from her face, leaving it a ghastly white. What is this? She asked, trying to stay calm, but her trembling voice betrayed her. I didn't answer. I just slammed the door shut with a loud bang and advanced on her, step by step. My eyes must have looked like those of a demon crawling out of hell. Vivian backed away in terror until her back hit the cold wall, with nowhere left to run. Sincere, what are you doing? She stammered, horrified. What am I doing? I laughed, a sound filled with cold-blooded murder. Vivian, I should be asking you, what have you been doing? I shot my hand out, grabbing her by the throat and slamming her against the wall. The force was so great that her face immediately turned red, and she began to cough and struggle violently. You've had a great time playing pretend all these years, haven't you? I stared into her eyes, asking word by word. Watching me dance like a fool on your strings, did it give you a great sense of accomplishment? Cough, Sincere. What are you saying? I don't understand, Vivian gasped, tears welling in her eyes as she tried to use her damsel in distress act to fool me one last time. But this time I wouldn't fall for it. Don't understand? I tightened my grip. Julian Vance, the Aegis system, do I need to remind you further? At those 2 keywords, Vivian's body went rigid. All her struggling ceased. The feigned weakness and fear in her beautiful eyes vanished, replaced by a venomous hatred and madness. The act was over. Hey, she suddenly started laughing, a sharp, shrill sound. So you finally found out, Sincere? And here I thought you could stay a fool for the rest of your life. Why? I roared, my hand on her throat trembling with rage. Why would you do this? Why? Vivian's gaze turned incredibly malevolent. She stared at me as if she wanted to carve out a piece of my flesh. Because you all deserve to die, you deserve to die. And that bitch Willow deserves to die even more if it weren't for her. Julian would never have died. I loved him for so many years. I stood by him for so many years, but his heart was always full of that woman, Willow. Even when he died, the most important part of his will was left to her. Why? And you? Her gaze shifted to me, filled with contempt and disdain. What are you? A mediocre, stupid, arrogant failure. What gave you the right to marry Willow? What gave you the right to be so happy? I wanted to destroy you both. I wanted to take everything from Willow, her man, her family. I wanted to crush them with my own hands. Julian's technology is the greatest masterpiece in the world. It shouldn't have been buried with him, and it certainly shouldn't have gone to that bitch Willow. Only I am worthy of inheriting his legacy. You were just a tool I chose. A rather convenient one at that tool. The words stabbed my heart. So, while I was worshipping her as my white moonlight, in her eyes I was nothing more than a disposable tool. The immense humiliation and fury made me lose control. I'll kill you, I screamed, my grip tightening. Vivian's face was turning purple, her eyes rolling back. Just as I was about to kill her, an image of the first page of Willow's diary flashed in my mind, the line, "May my Sincere always be carefree." My sanity returned at the last second. I abruptly let go. Vivian slid down the wall like a pile of rags, gasping for air, coughing and laughing hysterically. What? Lost your nerve? You coward, you're nothing but a coward. You can't beat me, she shrieked madly. Sincere, do you think you've won? Let me tell you, you've lost everything for me. Your tool, you threw away the person you loved most. You deserve to live in regret for the rest of your life. I looked at her face, twisted by madness, and the murderous rage inside me was replaced by a bone-deep coldness. Killing her would be too easy. I would make her pay the most painful price for everything she had done. I would ruin her reputation and leave her with nothing. I would make her live out the rest of her days in despair and shame. I took out my phone and dialed 911. Hello, 911? I'd like to report a crime. There's been a severe case of corporate espionage and fraud at XX address. I have all the evidence. Then, I made another call, this time to the editor-in-chief of a well-known financial media outlet. Hello, Mr. Lee. This is Sincere Smith. I have a big story for you regarding the theft of the late genius Julian Vance's core technology. The main culprit is my assistant, Vivian Reed. Yes, the evidence is solid. I'll send it to you right away after making the calls. I looked down at Vivian, who was still crumpled on the floor. My voice was terrifyingly calm. You wanted to inherit Julian Vance's legacy, didn't you? Fine. You can go inherit it in prison. Vivian's laughter stopped abruptly. She looked at me in horror, true fear finally showing on her face. No, Sincere, you can't do this to me. I love you. I did all of this because I love you too much. She began to beg incoherently. I watched her with cold detachment, as if observing a pathetic clown. Soon the police and reporters arrived. The flashing lights of cameras and police cars lit up the small apartment like daylight. As the police led Vivian away, she was still screaming curses at me and at Willow. I ignored her. I just walked quietly to the coffee table and carefully gathered Willow's diary and the stack of receipts. This was what I owed her. My victory wasn't in getting revenge on Vivian. It was in finally having a chance to atone for the unforgivable mistakes I had made. Vivian's case became a sensational business scandal. Theft of trade secrets, malicious investment guidance, fraud. With multiple convictions, she would spend the best years of her life behind bars. As for me, the victim and the whistleblower, my company's reputation took a hit. But after some crisis management and a sincere effort to compensate and reconcile with Julian's former partners, I gained a strange sort of respect in the industry for my decisive, righteous betrayal. Many called me a ruthless man. Only I knew I wasn't ruthless. I was just a coward who had made a colossal mistake and was desperately trying to atone for it. After cleaning up the mess at my company, the first thing I did was go to the hospital. I didn't go to see Willow directly. I was afraid she wouldn't want to see me. Through the doctor, I anonymously transferred another $2 million into Ethan's account. Combined with the previous million, the $3 million for his treatment was covered. At the same time, I used all my connections and resources to frantically search for a bone marrow match for Ethan, both nationally and globally. My efforts paid off. Half a month later, good news arrived. A highly compatible donor was found in the National Bone Marrow Registry. The surgery was scheduled immediately. On the day of the surgery, I didn't go to the hospital. I just sat in a coffee shop downstairs from my office all day, from dawn till dusk, drinking cup after cup of cold, bitter coffee. At 8 p.m., I received a text from the attending physician. It was just 2 words: surgery successful. At that moment, I collapsed onto the table and cried like a child. Not out of joy, but because the heaviest stone on my heart had finally begun to shift. I finally had a sliver of courage to face Willow. I started going to the hospital every day, like a stalker. I didn't dare get close. I just watched from a distance. I watched Ethan's health improve day by day, from being bedridden to being able to walk. I watched the clouds of worry on Willow's face dissipate day by day. She was still thin, but there was light in her eyes again. I saw her start to take care of her appearance, carefully combing her hair in a small mirror. I saw her occasionally sitting on a bench outside the hospital room, basking in the sun, a faint smile playing on her lips. It seemed like she was slowly climbing out of the dark swamp, and I, the culprit who had pushed her in, could only watch like a pathetic voyeur from afar, humbly sharing in the tiny fragments of her happiness that had nothing to do with me. I transferred a lot of money into her account. She returned every last cent. The note attached had only 2 words: thank you, polite and distant. I understood. She would only accept the money that was for saving a life. She didn't want anything else from me. We had reached an unspoken agreement. I would atone, she would accept, and then we would owe each other nothing. On the day Ethan was discharged, I went to the hospital. I bought a large bouquet of carnations but left it in the car, ultimately lacking the courage to give it to them. I saw Willow helping Ethan as they walked out of the hospital entrance, brother and sister laughing and talking. The sunlight shone on them, warm and piercing. Ethan looked like he was recovering well. Though still thin, he was in high spirits. He seemed to say something to Willow, and she looked up, her gaze inadvertently sweeping in the direction of my parked car. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. I saw the smile on her face falter slightly. Then, she calmly looked away, as if she had just seen an insignificant stranger. My heart in that instant felt empty. I knew it was truly over between us. 7 years of love buried by my own hands. The hurt I caused couldn't be erased with a simple, "I'm sorry." Some mistakes once made last a lifetime. I sold my company. Although the company had stabilized after the scandal, seeing the core code was a constant, stabbing reminder of my own foolishness and what I owed Willow. I sold it to a reliable competitor, ensuring all employees kept their jobs. A portion of the money went to compensate Julian's family. With the rest, I established a leukemia relief fund in Willow and Ethan's names. Then, I left the city that was filled with my regrets. I traveled to many places, trying to wash away my sins with new landscapes, but it was no use. Everywhere I went, my mind was filled with Willow. Her smile as she looked at me at our wedding, the way she would cover me with a blanket late at night, her broken sobs in the hospital hallway, and the final, calm stranger's gaze she gave me. Love, hate, regret, remorse. These 4 emotions gnawed at my heart day and night like venomous snakes. I quit smoking and drinking. I started reading, working out, trying to become the kind of man Willow had hoped for in her diary, but I knew I no longer had the right to stand before her, ever again. Epilogue. 2 years later. I opened a small bookstore in a quiet riverside town, living a tranquil life. One afternoon, the sun was shining and the store was empty. I sat by the window, organizing new books. The wind chime on the door jingled. I looked up out of habit and said, "Welcome." And then I froze completely. Standing at the entrance was Willow. She wore a simple cotton dress, her long hair draped over her shoulders. She looked healthier, more filled out than 2 years ago, and her complexion was good. She just stood there quietly, looking at me with a complex expression. There was surprise, relief, and a hint of something else I couldn't decipher. My heart skipped a beat. My mind went blank, and all words caught in my throat. She was the first to speak, her voice soft but clear. "Long time no see, Sincere." "Long time no see," I heard my own dry voice reply. What are you doing here? My brother has recovered well. He's opened his own studio now, creating cultural products," she said, walking slowly into the store, her eyes scanning the shelves. "He said the local handicrafts here are very unique and asked me to come and scout. I didn't expect to run into you." "Oh, that's great," I answered awkwardly, not knowing what to do with my hands and feet. An uncomfortable silence fell between us. Finally, I broke it. "I'm sorry." I had owed her those 2 words for far too long. Willow flinched slightly. She didn't look at me, instead picking up a book of poetry and gently tracing its cover. After a long moment, she said softly, "It's all in the past." Yes, it was all in the past. For her, the suffering, the pain, it was all over. But for me, the regret would follow me for the rest of my life. She browsed for a bit, chose 2 books, and came to the counter. "How much?" "It's okay, they're on me." "Business is business," she insisted, pulling 2 bills from her wallet and placing them on the counter. "A clean transaction is better. A clean transaction." I understood what she meant. Between us, all debts had been settled. I silently took the money and gave her the change. She took it and turned to leave. Just as she reached the door, her hand about to touch the handle, she stopped and looked back at me. The evening sun shone from behind her, outlining her in a golden halo. "Sincere," she said, looking at me. There was no hate in her eyes, nor was there love, just a faint water-like calmness. Thank you for saving my brother, and thank you for letting yourself go." With that, she gave me the faintest of smiles. Then she turned, pushed open the door, and left. The wind chime rang again, crisp and clear. I stood there, watching her disappear into the bustling alley, and tears finally streamed down my face. I knew that smile was her final, most merciful judgment on me, the sinner. She had forgiven me, not so we could get back together, but so she could truly let go of the past and walk into the future. And my future? Perhaps it was to guard this little bookstore, to live with this endless regret, and to grow old alone. I once thought Vivian was the light that shone into my life, the white moonlight I had always yearned for. Only at the very end did I finally wake up. The one true, bright moon of my life had been shattered by my own hands, never to be whole again. So what if she has a white moonlight? I have one too. Yes, I did. I just lost her,